Welcome to the Monday Monologue. Got some fun topics this week. One, the tube situation seems to be getting better. I read somewhere they're allowing exports again, and well, I'm sure there's going to be some lag between the export of these and the stock being all bought up and stuff. Might be a little bit of a struggle for a while, but it looks like there's bright news on that front. For you folks that went out hoarding tubes and were paying way overpriced because you were freaking out thinking tubes were all going to disappear, well, hey, here we are. Y'all overpaid for these tubes, and pretty soon things should be getting back to normal. So most things like that, like toilet paper during COVID, people go crazy, want to go out buy more than they need, and this is what happens. They get stuck with them. So anyway, don't feel too sorry, but it is what it is. Shame people have to be like that, but they do. The good part about this, though, is hopefully this has inspired some other tube manufacturers to step up and fill in some of these gaps so we don't have this single source or single part of the world problem for having these tubes that we love. And I don't know if y'all have filled out the Western Electric survey. I'm going to put it in the link below. And go do this survey if they're still taking it. Seemed interesting to me that the wide variety of tubes that they were proposing they would be interested in, like 6SL7, 12AX7s, possibly EL34s, and some other tubes that I really love. And I started thinking about what would I be willing to pay for a really great sounding new production 6S and 7. I mean, you start going back and get the really good sounding, Sylvania tall bottles and stuff, they're selling for $100, and you're buying 60 or 70-year-old tubes that you have no idea where they came from. And I don't know about you guys, but I'd be willing to pay $100 a piece for a really nice 6S and 7 that was built in a way that was sonically glorious. And be interesting to hear in the comments what you would be willing to pay for a good, reliable, good sounding 6S and 7. I'm picking that tube because it's a pretty common one. You could say a 12AX7 or an EL34, but I feel like a 6S and 7 is a good candidate for us quoting below what you'd be willing to pay for a really good one if somebody like Western Electric stepped up and started, really making a solid one. The other thing that this tube shortage has prompted me to be thinking about is tube rectification. No, there's a lot of people out there that feel like that tube rectifiers have a real noticeable impact on sound quality. I'll be straight up honest. I've swapped between multiple different brands of 5AR4s. They all sound the same to me. Now this is on an SE amp that doesn't have the varying current draw based on the sound volume that a push-pull amp has. But on an SE amp that has pretty much a constant current draw, I just don't hear any difference between them. And I've really tried to hear the difference. And so I don't think that even going to good solid state rectification is going to make any sonic difference. But the cool thing about indirectly heated tube rectifiers is the slow voltage buildup of the B+, and it gives the heaters a chance to kind of get going and get ready and have the tubes ready to conduct when you put the B+ on them. So I've been thinking about, hey, how can you get around that with solid state rectification? Because solid state rectification has several good things going to it. Very little to no voltage drop, don't have to heat up another high amperage heater. Almost all those tube rectifiers pull like 2 amps of current, which makes the transformers get hotter. Then you have to have a transformer with a 5-volt winding. And so with solid state rectification, you avoid all of that stuff. So I've seen where people have put, electronic, 555 chip kind of timers in their tube amplifiers that then slow down when the B plus is turned on. So turn the amp on, heaters all come on, 15 seconds later, click, relay pops, turns on the B plus, you're ready to go. And we should always let them run for at least that long before we put power or put music through them anyway. So nothing wrong with that. But if you're like me, I really just don't like the idea of having, printed circuit boards with all these little IC chips and stuff on it. It just doesn't feel right to me in a tube amp. And I know I'm guilty of using LEDs in the signal path on the cathode of input tubes, but overall I try to keep the sand out of the amplifiers, and especially an IC chip. That's just way more modern than seems fitting for a tube amp. So I've found a really cool way of doing that. Delay tubes. This looks like a regular octal, almost like a 6S and 7 shaped bottle, and Amperite makes these. This is a, what's the number on this thing? A 6NO15. So I believe the 6 means it's 6 volt, NO means it's normally open, and then 15 is 15-second timer on it. And a bunch of these are on eBay. At least I was able to find them. And after I make this video, they may be harder to find. But anyway, they sit on the top of the amp. They kind of fill up a space like a tube rectifier would, but it's just an on-off switch. Now, unfortunately, you can't run B plus through these, at least looking at the specs that I saw. These need to operate a relay, but I still think this is a cool way to put a timer circuit into a tube amp without putting in an IC chip and doing all that stuff. Plus, I think these just kind of look cool. People be like, what is that thing? And it's like, oh, that's the little timer tube. So anyway, this is a cool way to not have to buy 5AR4 rectifiers, and a relay in this and a couple of diodes is going to be a lot more reliable than even the best 5AR4 rectifiers are. So this is kind of a way of getting around having to hunt down and buy a nice one of those tubes, especially with the shortage we have now. So there's my little tube amp tip for the week. The other thing I wanted to kind of go over is, I know it seems like I keep just waffling around, going back and forth on all this stuff, but I'm trying to figure out an easy way to put together some sort of a kit for people that want to build one of my amplifiers. And right now I've really got 3. I've got a 6BM8, I've got my 6SQ7 EL34, and then my 300B. And what's really held me back in the past was fabricating the chassis. It's a lot of work, time consuming. It's, when you're doing a one-off, it's fun. By the time you've done a second one, you're kind of going, ugh, I'm dreading it. Because it's fun doing the layout, making the first one, but then once you've made one, it becomes repetitive and it's not fun anymore. And so I've thought about, okay, what if I put together a kit, but there's no chassis? Because when I look on my forum, it's really fun to see how differently people have made their chassis. Some people have made them out of wood. Some people have made them out of just a regular Hammond chassis. Some other people have made them out of, all kinds of different stuff. Some of the nicer aluminum chassis and stuff. And I think that's what really makes it kind of a custom, one-off thing, is when you're making your own chassis. And I'm wondering if it might be better to put together just a kit that's got nice Nikon caps, it's got all the resistors you need. It's got the tube sockets, the tag strips, maybe you have the volume control in it, the RCA jacks, have some nice speaker jacks in it, but not include the chassis, and then have it optional whether you get the transformers or not. Because one of the things about the transformers is they're heavy, they're expensive to ship. And if you're going to be buying some that are fairly easy to buy, like some Hammonds, it doesn't make sense for me to buy them, have them shipped here, than to put them in a box for them to have them shipped to you. And maybe you don't want to use Ed cores. Maybe you want to use Hashimoto's. Maybe you want to use Hammonds. And, you know, with the lead time on the Ed cores, I'm not sure people would want to order from me and then have to wait for the transformers. Because, you know, people don't like waiting. And possibly, if this did become popular, at least for, you know, those 3 amps, I could order, you know, half a dozen or so of each of the Ed cores that I am going to use for it, and then I can put the kits together. So, to me, that kind of fixes the problem I had with the fabrication and the time that takes, because then basically I'm just, you know, putting together a really solid bomb, and then I get a price break on buying multiples of these things and then boxing them up. I don't really want to have to do a paper assembly manual. I think that's just, man, that's a lot of work to put together something somebody can follow like that. And I think the video format should be good enough for somebody to put one of these together along with the schematics. So let me know what you think about that idea. I mean, that actually sounds doable to me and wouldn't be real stressful, and it would save you guys from having to possibly ordering parts from multiple vendors, because like I get the tube sockets from one, you know, Tubes and More, and I get the tag strips from them too, but then I get a lot of this other stuff from Mauser. Then you guys wouldn't be having to order stuff and pay shipping from multiple places, and then get whatever chassis you want and buy your own knobs and the little detailed stuff like that. So let me know what you think about that idea. So anyway, I think that's it for this week. I'm going to keep this one kind of short. I know I've been dragging this 47 amp out, but I'm actually getting close. I got the heater voltages balanced out finally with a pair of tubes, and I'll get into how I did that wrong, and you might not want to do it like I did on this amp. You might want to do it differently. So we'll cover all that. Still don't know if these 27 tubes are going to be the bomb or not, but we'll find out here soon. So if you like this content, please subscribe, like the video, and we'll see you next week for the Monday Monologue.